Hey everybody, this is chapter 2 to Aftermath, which is an automated book I am doing on the chain of events that happened after my mom passed away. So I'm going to start this video off by saying two things, and one that is exactly what it was my mom was suffering, because it was actually genetically passed down to her and she inherited it, so it was something that she had been fighting a long time. And that was, she was bipolar, and she was also suffering depression. And I'm talking about severe. So I'm going to go back to the night that it happened, and that's going to be the start of this video. So the night that it happened, it was, we found out at about 7 o'clock that night. Well, excuse me, that's whenever we got the knock on the door from the police officer, because I remember looking at the clock and thinking it was weird that somebody was knocking on our door this late. So it was about 7 o'clock that the cops knocked on the door. So you can imagine how late people were coming to our house. Whenever I say people were coming to our house, I'm talking about our backyard was full, our front yard was full, up and down the streets full of cars. We had a cornfield. It was our house, another house, and then a cornfield full of cars. Just cars everywhere. Because whenever the word got out, people came. They couldn't believe it. But it was real. And I remember going to bed that night, and I had made a Facebook post on the computer, and I said something along the lines of, everybody just needs to leave me alone. I don't need anybody's pity. Because people were blowing up my Facebook. And at the time, I did not have a phone, but I just remember everybody reaching out to me. And instead of taking it, I rejected it. I didn't want nobody to talk to me. I didn't want nobody's... to me, I felt like they felt sorry for me. And having people feel sorry for you is one of the crappiest feelings in the world. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and the first thing, excuse me, I'm sorry. So I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and the first thing that went through my mind was, I don't have a mom anymore. And I just lay there, and I thought that over and over in my head, and about how I had treated her the day that she passed. And I just let it eat me alive, I guess. It's the simplest way I could put it. Well, I eventually got up because there were still a lot of, family members did end up staying the night. And I knew that we would have a busy day ahead of us. So, a lot of the people did not find out until really the next day, and that's whenever everything really started going into motion. And y'all, whenever I say people, hundreds of people came, y'all. It was just ridiculous, the amount of people that showed up. And almost everybody that showed up, my mom had touched in some sort of way. Despite her feeling like she meant nothing to nobody, everybody that showed up, she had touched in some sort of way. We had so much food brought to us that the people that was bringing us food, we was telling them to take to-go plates. Because, there was no room on the counters. The fridge and the freezer were completely full. The table was completely full. There was just food everywhere. But, there was enough food for all the people and all the family members that was showing up. Well, I should have looked this up before I did this video, but I believe it was 2 days. For 2 days, we had family members and friends coming and going. And as much of a stress reliever as it was, it didn't last. It always came back. And the day of her funeral, I remember whenever we got to the funeral, I forgot a very important part. The day of the funeral, someone showed up that very, very much surprised us. And if I remember correctly, I don't think nobody wanted her to know that my mom passed away. And it was my mom's sister. Y'all, I wasn't even allowed to call this woman aunt. I had met her twice. I've only seen her twice in my life. That's how bad of a relationship my mom and her had. But she showed up. And yes, she did have the look of grief and sorrow on her face. So we all kind of just held our tongues. I'm sure a few of us were mad. I wasn't necessarily one of the ones that was, furious that she was there, but I know some of them were. Because not only did my mom have a bad relationship with her, so did a lot of other people at that house. So we're going to go back to the funeral and stuff. And I remember whenever we pulled up, there were already a handful of people there. And some of them I didn't know, and some of them I did. So I actually went to hang out with one of my childhood friends who lived up the road from me. And I was just kind of hanging around her, watching everybody showing up. Well, family members got called into the church. So we went into the church, and we were spoken to and stuff like that. And then, people started coming into the church, coming to us because we were her children and, her husband and stuff like that. I remember turning around and just my jaw dropped at the amount of people that came by the time that funeral started. Whenever I say there was no room in that church, there was no room in that church. People were standing up around the wall. People were in the aisles, all along the back. There was not enough seats for the amount of people that showed up to my mom's funeral. Every single one of them was mourning and crying because she meant something to everybody there. So the funeral starts, and it's a very emotional event and everything like that. And she who shall not be named ended up making a fool of herself to the point where she got locked out of the funeral. And if y'all don't know if y'all haven't figured it out, I'm talking about my mom's sister. Yes. She embarrassed us at my mother's funeral. Ran out dry heaving, and she was locked out. She was not allowed back in the church because of the embarrassment that she had brought on her and us. So after the funeral and everything, we all go back to our house, and a confrontation explodes between my mom's brother and my mom's sister. My mom's brother beat the teetotal crap out of her. And as bad as it is to say, we all stood there and watched, except for one person. Only, I believe it was our neighbor who stood up and was like, "Somebody stop him! Somebody stop him!" Y'all, we was like this. Yeah, we was all watching. So the day of the funeral, we had a lot of family members stay and stuff like that. It was very good to have that bond there whenever all of us were hurting the way that we were. But like I mentioned a few minutes ago, it didn't last. Eventually everybody left and life went on. And I'm going to stop the video right here because that's pretty much the entire week of the funeral. By the time the end of the week got here, it was just already so different. It was dead, I guess. I can't even think of the word for it. But, so I'm going to end the video right there. And, the next video will be the next few months after the funeral. So if you notice, I go from a day to a week to a month because after this, it flies by. but the chain of events only get worse. So y'all stay tuned, and I really hope y'all like the video, and I apologize for my emotionalness. It's probably going to be in every single video. Y'all have a good day.